frontier is defined as uncharted territory by land or ocean. Those who chart that territory tell a story. The past illustrates the blueprint for the present, how things are and how they've evolved. From land to water, we are challenged to border that new frontier, a frontier the outdoorsman knows like no other. Author Gary Lewis works his way along that edge of where discoveries, failures, and achievements have written the story of the sportsman.
Yes! Yes!
From state to state, continent to continent, the stories told create the foundation of the present, and they lay the framework for the future. Through the muzzle fire and on the stone are stories from the edge.
Water is the most important thing as far as Indians are concerned, 'cause that's life.
The past is written, the present is here, and this is Frontier Unlimited.
The family came here just before the turn of the century, 118 years ago, and my great-granddad was from Denmark, and he built this house temporary till he made enough money to build a better one for my great-grandmother. He never made enough money to build a better one. and my kids are the 5th generation that's been surviving on this land out here.
There are a lot of reasons why someone might have rolled an Indian motorcycle into a dry well on a farm out in the wheat fields north of Shaniko. Imagine you're a farmer, and you want your son to grow up to take over the farm after you're gone. That Indian motorcycle looks like trouble. Last year, while scouting one of the private lakes at Justison Ranches near Grass Valley, Lewis caught something in a conversation and had John Justison repeat it. My grandpa told me he rolled an Indian motorcycle into a garbage pit after World War II. John Justison said, "I've been waiting to dig it up ever since." That was 50 years ago. There are a lot of reasons why a person might want to dig up an Indian motorcycle. Today, a pre-war Indian motorcycle could bring $14,000 or more. On eBay, a parts bike without a motor is going for $2,400. Lewis told Justison he'd help him dig it up. If you've ever stood around kicking dirt with a farmer, you know there are times when a shovel will bite into Eastern Oregon dirt and when it won't. And there are days when trout haven't seen an artificial fly for half a year or more. What could be a finer day than a day in May? Lewis said he'd bring the shovels and enthusiasm for old motorcycles and strong backs, army guys on Harleys and fly rods. The crew started at the Wild Horse Harley-Davidson dealership in Bend, Oregon, early in the morning, rolling away with the rumble of pipes. One guy on each bike, except for Matt Palmer, who had Anita, soon-to-be Palmer, riding on the back. Lewis followed in the Ford with his pontoon boat on a trailer, fly rods in the bed, and shovels and picks. Bill Herrick, Ron Peterson, and his daughter Melissa rode north with Lewis, 6 bikes and 2 trucks in the convoy. It don't matter what your MOS is when you're in the Army. You learn how to use a shovel, Brian Miller said.
This is our final destination?
I hope so. Where's our pit at?
Right there, right down, right in front of my pickup. No, it's not.
We have to go very far from what he says. Nope, there's so much metal in the ground here. Pretty much. We're gonna take the tools just in case. Melissa, there's some water in the back of the truck. Thanks.
The first well that they dug, hand dug, was a dry hole. And then they moved on down this draw and dug another well, and they found water. And then the well that they had dug that was dry, they went ahead and filled it full of cans and bottles and just filled it up with junk. In those days, they didn't have waste management out here. That's a wagon tire.
Wow, that's in good shape.
Yeah.
Don't want to fit.
He said when they filled this old dry hole in, they dumped an Indian motorcycle down there.
When did the Indian motorcycle? 1902?
1897. It was a bicycle company.
Okay.
Oh, they were the first. I have to go run the wire cutters.
He's from Australia.
I think you might have to-
Everything's upside down and backwards back here.
I couldn't get it to work either, and I've been
That's an old
for a while.
Way back, maybe even before World War II, John's grandfather, they put an Indian motorcycle in the ground. This is an old garbage pit. They threw bottles in here, buckets, equipment, fence posts. We got barbed wire in here. I mean, this is some of this. We could find some old barbed wire in this pit. But down in the bottom of this somewhere is an Indian motorcycle, and so we're just going to see if by force of will and tools and gloves and wire cutters we can get it out of there. Some harness of some sort. Put that in the pile of interesting things.
My great-granddad's the one that got started here, and then my granddad was raised here. And when I was growing up in grade school, there was a lot of Model Ts here, and my theory is that they took a lot of them to keep one going.
There we go.
And then there was a lot of the old blacksmith shop there. There's still a lot of old car parts and
Yeah.
a lot of old horseshoes, and the forge is still there where they made all their shoes and all their parts. Get that wire out of the way, then I think from there on it's just handwork. But
Well, what about trying to pull it out with a tow strap?
well, that'd be fine. You got a tow strap?
Yeah, we have two.
Oh yeah.
There they are.
There's a good idea. I think this looks like a plan. This looks good. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming out of there in just a couple minutes. I think we're all going to back up. You got your e-brake on?
There's still quite a bit more in there, but good gosh, we got most of it.
Is that a handlebar? That's a big beach. Those beach bar handlebars.
Oh yeah, keep going.
Bring out the best foods and bring out the best. Mayo. Yeah, you swing in the...
It just comes right out.
What are these? Gaskets.
There is so much barbed wire.
Oh, here they are.
They'd pulled out fence posts, barbed wire, and tire chains. They unearthed medicine bottles and oil tins and coffee cans.
That is the stove you see. Yeah. Dug for water, and it was a dry hole. Okay. Then they moved down and dug another hole and found water.
cool.
So they had an empty hole there. They filled it up with garbage.
Okay, so the
And-
motorcycle was just garbage to them.
Oh, we already knew that.
Nope.
Now it'll be easier to pull.
Wow. Wow. Whoa, yeah. We haven't found any motorcycle parts yet, but we're finding a lot of interesting things like chicken wire and an old, looked like a little headlight.
Is that a barbecue?
And we got maybe an oil stove. We don't know what we're hooking onto now, but we'll know in a minute. I don't know what I got here, but it's hinged on one side. We don't know if we're going to find this thing today. What we're going to do is we're going to work till we can't work anymore, and then we're going to go fishing. That's what I've done my whole life.
I like that plan. It was empty. I think there was just a note in there that said,
Processed cheese.
Justison pulled off a glove and punched in a number on his cell phone. 5 generations later, on the place homesteaded by a blue-eyed farmer from Denmark, he told his son, "Get me a backhoe." We were going deep.
So we found the intact lid, intact jar that fits that lid. Screws right on there. But it looks like it might have had honey in it.
Oh, we got it! Woo! Doyle rules! I'll
Okay, sounds good.
look for some hydraulics to help us here.
A backhoe was on the way. The crew put down their shovels and picked up their fly rods.
The family came here just before the turn of the century, 118 years ago. When they got here, they grew wheat, and they plowed with horses and a one-bottom plow, and they had livestock. They had, this was a factory. They had chickens and pigs and sheep and cattle and workhorses to do the work. I think it was tough, and my granddad raised 5 boys here, and he would take his hack and his horse and go to Kent and work in the lumber yard at Kent and unload trains for lumber, and then come home on the weekend and farm. But the boys were doing the chores on the ranch here, and I don't know how they survived. Very carefully, I think. I lived here, my family lived here for a while when I was in grade school. And before that, I had an uncle that lived here. And this house has not been lived in since the early 60s. It was the last time anybody lived here. As you can see, the road getting in here is pretty tough. It's a horse and buggy road. But I got a backhoe coming. And that'll help us. And we'll hope that Indian shows up.
Built to protect steelhead spawning habitat and control flooding, check dams can be found on the little seasonal creeks. One of the lakes near Kent is only about 3 surface acres in size, and narrow enough that it is easily fished from the bank.
Remember I showed you? Hold it with that one there, and then put this hand forward, and then when he runs, let it go. Oh, it's a biggie. Look at the size. You see? Can you see the size of him? Okay, let him have a little run. You ever caught one that big?
No.
Oh!
Huge.
He was huge.
Dad, did you see how big he was?
Isn't that what it's all about? You know what? There'll be another one. It was huge.
These fish were not ready for Lewis and crew. If they'd ever seen an artificial fly, it was a long time ago.
Yep.
I see the net. I see the net. Get him, guy. There we go.
So what kind of fish is that?
It's a rainbow.
Rainbow trout.
Then you just hold it in your hands. Now put the net down. Let it swim away.
First one. Good job.
I found that over where we were fishing, and I picked it up and made sure it wasn't a real butterfly, so I didn't think it's wearing.
Where's the rest of it?
It was just a
Probably in the fish's belly right now.
Across the pond, fish surfaced along a wall of cattails. Out on the surface of the water, the wind blew a little chop. Lewis opted for a damselfly nymph with a red glass bead.
He's at least 4 pounds from the look of him. Excellent.
Anita stood on the dam learning how to cast and work first fly rod and then spinning rod. Bill Herrick tied on a beadhead nymph.
You just bring him on in, just let him fight. Because you don't pull him in, you use the rod to fight him.
Yeah.
All that energy is at the end of the rod.
It's going through that.
Yeah.
She reeled and let the fish run and reeled again. This was the first fish of her life.
You're gonna have to grab that
You
sucker.
have to grab that baby. You don't have to hold him. You don't have to hold him. Just look at him. Look at that nice fish.
I'm not scared of it at all.
I'm not scared of it. I'm only back 3. Okay.
I know it's just a fish.
There he goes. He's gonna be fine. Good job.
Yeah, good job.
That was fun.
Not happy you got that on camera.
You scream like a girl. Spit for lubricant. We boys use spit for lubricant. But I'm not going to be able to horse him in.
Right, okay, I'll do the netting.
I hate to tire him out that much.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I told you, it's a toad.
That's the fish you came for right there.
There you go, lift it up high. Lift your rod up high, there you go. Not too much, but just enough to keep his head out of that grass. Oh, yeah, come on, put it right there.
Oh. There you go. There you go. Hold it like that. That's the way. And then when you're ready, then set it down into the water, and you're gonna aim it back this direction.
So it knows where to go.
So yeah, just set it down like that. Okay. Oh, there you go. See, that's the way. Well done, Bill.
Oh, that was all her.
That was good.
Oh, you taught me everything I know. And I'm not kidding. I mean everything I know.
A few photos, a quick release, and Anita's fish was gone. I wish I could have cooked it.
What do you think?
Lewis heard Anita whisper to her fiancé a few minutes later. Back in the truck, the crew rolled back to the dig site.
He said that they pulled up some old license plates.
Oh, motorcycle plates?
Well, we're saying they are. Okay, so it looks like we've got a 1925 and a 1926. So that's some old license plates here. First McNess Company, Freeport, Illinois. Some medicine or something.
Snake oil.
Snake oil. Look at all these bottles.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, what's
That's
this?
a frame of an old car. See?
I'm amazed that you were able to get so many bottles up without breaking them. You must have a real touch.
I'm amazed too. We found old car parts and license plates.
There's a wheel down there. Look at that.
Our wheel.
Look at that wheel.
There was a heap of bottles, cans, and artifacts out of the hole now. The jetsam of generations of Justisons making their living off the land in eastern Oregon. Lewis rode the bucket down into the hole and climbed out in the wet dirt at the bottom. It was a wheel, but it was not a motorcycle wheel.
A done deal and ride back up.
So they got down, put down it, and started to see the shot rock.
We could call it a motorcycle wheel.
I don't think so.
Well, we could go
And
deeper.
obviously, it's down where it'll be completely disintegrated.
Yeah.
If it's in there. It's too deep.
Yeah, but I think we could keep going down and we keep finding stuff for a little while longer.
Another day.
Yeah,
The mystery is not solved.
that's right.
Lewis said maybe it's best we didn't find an old Indian. It would have just caused a lot of trouble.